Critical but stable is a medical phrase that feels confusing. Critical sounds bad. Stable sounds good. What's up with that? I'm going to break down what doctors mean exactly when they use this phrase. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to give you a bonus tip on making decisions for someone in critical but stable condition, if, God forbid, you ever need to. In the meantime, I'm curious, what medical phrases do you find confusing or even misleading? Let me know in the comments, and I'm happy to tackle those topics on a future episode. First, let's look at the word critical. What does that mean exactly? Well, anyone in critical condition needs a lot of medical attention, and generally these folks are in the intensive care unit, and they're often on life support, whether that's a ventilator or a medication called vasopressors, which are necessary to keep the body's blood pressure at a high enough level to sustain it. And if that person isn't on life support at the moment, they're often sick enough that the doctors are worried they may need life support in the days ahead, or even the hours ahead. Really, you can't be in worse condition than critical, and folks in critical condition are often sick enough that they could die. Let's look at the second part of the phrase though, stable. Because people often hear stable and think, oh, well, that's good news. And then that gets confusing because how can you have good news and bad news at the same time? Critical but stable. Well, the thing is that all stable means is unchanging at the moment. So if your condition is already good, then being stably good is also good. If your condition is bad though, then being stably bad is also bad. And the key here is that medically speaking, the longer your condition remains bad, the lower your chances are for a recovery anytime soon, if at all. So what are you really hoping to hear when someone is in stable but critical condition? Really, the key word that you're looking out for is downgraded. Because when someone is downgraded, it means they're getting less sick and needing less attention from the medical staff. So if someone has been in stable but critical condition and they're downgraded, often this means they're getting to a point where they don't need the intensive care unit anymore and may be able to transfer to another part of the hospital, like a step-down unit or a medical or surgical ward. And hopefully from there, the next step would be talking about rehabilitation, meaning a shift towards another facility altogether, where that person would get physical therapy and occupational therapy with the aim of recovering as much of their previous strength as possible. Now, I promised if you stuck around, I'd offer you a tip on making decisions for someone in critical but stable condition, and here it is. If you've got someone in critical but stable condition on a ventilator, there's going to come a point where the doctors approach you about long-term ventilator support. And generally this happens around the 2-week mark, and what we're talking about is placing a tracheostomy in this person. A tracheostomy is where a doctor's put a surgical hole in that person's neck through their trachea, and then they place a small tube through that, which they can then connect to the ventilator. And this is a common thing that docs want to do around the 2-week mark for a number of reasons, and they're pretty good at walking you through the logistics of all that. But doctors are less consistent at talking to you about what the big picture implications of tracheostomy are. And there are serious implications when we're talking about a tracheostomy that you have to know if you're going to make the right decision for your person. The implications are that how the person is now may be as good as they're ever going to get. And they may never go home again, even with the tracheostomy. So what you got to be clear with the doctors about is what would a meaningful recovery look like to this person? And how likely do the doctors think a tracheostomy would serve as a bridge to that recovery you're hoping for? It's also helpful to just generally come with thoughts about what your person would say about their current situation and what they would think about what the doctors are saying about their most likely future situation. Ultimately, what would they say about long-term ventilator support? Would they find that an acceptable way to press forward? And I hope if you come prepared with these thoughts, you will find the path forward just a little bit more clear, if not easy. All right, well, I hope this helps, and thank you so much for watching.